I am excited about the possibilities that are before us in creating a new Logan High School. A Logan High School that builds on the foundation, literally, of Logan High of the past and creates the Logan High of the future. And in order to create that school, our architects brought students in from various backgrounds and asked them to create a Wonder Lab for Logan. Students were stretched to learn in a way that they'd never been asked to do before. And they found they learned more when they were helped along by a facilitator who asked them questions and drew information out of them and asked the whys and the whats. And the students found the knowledge. That's what we want for our students. We need environments where students can move and touch and collaborate and have quiet space to think. We don't know what that building's going to look like, but we can create it for Logan High School.
In response to the school district's new paradigm of education, MHTN developed a new paradigm of programming and designing a school. And we use prototype design as a new way of designing and programming a school. MHTN invited Christian Long to come and facilitate a couple of 21st century learning workshops with students from Logan High School. The students initially thought they were coming to help design their new Logan High School, but rather Christian talked to them about curiosity and wonder, and the assignment they were given was to design a Wonder Lab for the city of Logan. So the students focus their energy on wonder, curiosity, what it is, what it means to them, and then in their groups they came up with a Wonder Lab for Logan High.
My favorite part about Wonder Lab was that the people we were working with didn't tell us what to do, they didn't tell us to copy off their work. We learned from teaching ourselves, which is a way that we all learn, whether we know it or not. They told us, you guys are gonna find a Wonder Lab and you guys are gonna make it wonderful. When asked, what's a Wonder Lab? They're like, I don't know, what is a Wonder Lab? And so we got to figure out on our own what that Wonder Lab was to us. They weren't looking for their answer, they were looking for our answer.
I'd say the Wonder Lab experience is a lot different than like a normal high school day because you had a lot more flexibility and you could kind of choose where you wanted to go with assignments, whereas teachers usually direct you on a path, and it was nice change to be able to kind of do what you wanted to do with the assignment instead of being forced to do it a certain way that maybe you don't like the best.
Everybody learns differently, so we have some people that like to write it all down. And then we have some people that like to log it down. We had mini iPads and I liked it because I could take pictures to jog my memory because I don't have a perfect memory. Our group moved around a lot, which kept our brain flowing. It was perfect because in class, when we get put in one area, basically the only thing I do is turn my head to the left and check the clock because I feel stuck, and me as well as every other student in Logan High, we like to feel free. I mean, students, we're not adults, but we want to feel like we're adults. We want to feel like we have some control over our life just a little bit. So being able, like me and my group, being able to go outside if we needed some fresh air to think, or even just go out in the hallway and sit down. Because being stuck in this little classroom wasn't beneficial to our thoughts.
My favorite part about the learning environment was probably that we didn't have to stay in the room. Just the fact that you could go outside and work outside and that you didn't have to be exactly in the room was a big help. Just being outside, it calms you, it's relaxing and you think better.
The learning environment that we had there helped me think because not only was it open, so we felt like we had room to move around, there was windows, natural lighting, so my head didn't hurt because the hospital lightings aren't fun. The chairs were nice, not just because they were bouncy or colorful, but because we could move them. They were portable. We could take them where we wanted. We could get comfortable. We felt relaxed, so we could actually learn.
This Wonder Lab activity was very different from what we're used to school-wise. It's very different. It's more of an open environment. You know, you're not told what to do. You're not told how to do it. It's your idea. You do what what you can with it, and you can use all sorts of resources, whereas having it being school-based, you're kind of just stuck in a desk, sitting there listening to, I don't know, a lecture from a teacher who you might take some notes on, memorize those for a test, and then just forget about them. But here at the Wonder Lab, we learn stuff that we will take for a long time.
As the students were presenting their Wonder Lab projects, it didn't take long for them or everyone else in the room to realize that what they were talking about had everything to do with what a new high school for Logan should be.
Prototype Studio started with really a question, and that was, if we're serious about the future of learning, if we're curious about what 21st century learning is, we have to experiment a bit. We have to test. And what we became very curious about when the first prototype experience was launched was that how can we empower young people to look for problems worth solving, but maybe more importantly, questions worth answering. And from the very first one through today, we continue to be inspired by a really simple premise, and that is when young people are given a chance to identify the questions and problems worth exploring, we're all better for it.
As we watched the students in the Wonder Lab prototype design workshop, we learned a lot of things from them. We learned how the space would support them. We learned what they needed when they wanted quiet time to think. We learned what they needed to be in a group and group think. We learned how they use whiteboards, what kind of furniture they gravitate towards. We learned how the technology in the room helped to support their learning engagement activity, how they appreciated the connection to the outdoors and natural light. And then we took all of these things that we learned and designed a prototype learning environment that would be built in the existing Logan High School.
As far as the prototyping process goes, it's actually a really kind of a new way to look at programming from an architectural and design standpoint. You know, typically when we go through the programming process, we meet with user groups and we sit down with them in a room for maybe an hour. We talk about what their wants, what their needs are, what works for them, what doesn't. And this kind of takes the flip side of it, where we actually take the users, we're seeing how they interact with each other and interacting and how they do their work and how they function in a space, how the space is working for them. And we can physically see that interaction instead of, you know, having a face-to-face conversation. We can see their day-to-day activity and actually really solve problems from what we're observing.
The idea came about that we need a space that we can use that shows and demonstrates some of the ideas in this high performance learning idea, and so we started looking at spaces within the school that could maybe be converted into a 21st century type learning space. And working with the district, we found a corner of the building that looked like it could be converted and switched into this space. And so we got together with our consultants and the team and talked about it, designed it over a short period of time, and then the construction started.
In looking at a prototyping of technology in this space, we wanted to explore multiple technologies, how the teachers would use them, how the students would use them, and what that can do for learning. So beyond the space itself, we want to see what wireless technology will do. We want to see what a projection unit with tinting on the windows will do. We want to have a video capture system. We want to explore touchscreen surfaces in multiple ways. We want to put those touchscreen surfaces in high traffic areas with free access by the students, as well as directed spaces where the teachers can allow students to work on projects that they've set up for their classroom.
The way the prototype space will help inform our design is when we are able to see how students use the space, we're going to know what kinds of other spaces we need to create. When a student comes into the space and they transform the space into something that maybe we hadn't even pictured in the first place, that starts to trigger the design process of how can we create that space in the new design. The district wanted to be able to use this space this year, and so that put our timeline very tight so that they could take advantage of using the space this year. So we had about a week and a half to design the space and less than 3 weeks to build the space. That made collaboration critical and communication critical in our process.
The only way to pull off a construction schedule that short with that much technology involved was to build the project with the architect in an office building without actually having any tools or materials on site. We went through step by step and tried to figure out what's going to go wrong when we start knocking out the existing walls. What obstacles are we going to come up with? The construction was complicated by the fact that it had to be done with classes in session on the other side of the wall. So it meant sometimes working from 6:30 in the morning until well after midnight. Crews were often moving out of spaces because they were doing noisy operations that would disrupt the educational process, so they would then come back after hours. So it was a initial planning session of figuring out what can we do when do we need a given material in order to not hold up the schedule. And in some cases, the architect actually changed materials because the selected materials could not get to the project on time. So there had to be a lot of flexibility in the design as well, a lot of give and take.
My favorite part about the prototype learning environment is the educational energy that it's created in only being open for a couple of days. As students and teachers are passing by, they see and sense that something different is happening. And that's going to help to set the stage for the end result of Logan High School being a total high school with that environment and that feeling and that energy that can happen when high school students are pursuing the ideas that they're curious about, the things that interest them. And as high school students have that inner drive to engage in learning, the whole environment of the high school will change and be elevated.
It's going to allow us to really find all those different learning styles and ways that we can help our students learn. That's what this space is really about to me. Is it's about the students. It's about empowering them to learn and take control of their learning.
The things that I liked the best about the classroom that really affected me and how I learned were definitely the colors and the seating. I liked how you were able to move around and enjoy more of the movement of the tables, and your workflow was portable more than it is stationary like at a desk where you're kind of forced in and you're sitting like this the whole time.
The new spaces that were built were great. It really helped to have lots of places where we could write down things, like the windows, the walls, all the whiteboards, the movable whiteboards that we had. I thought that was really good, really helped me out to be able to just always be writing something down, and so I liked that. And I also liked how the spaces were more open feeling, and more lighted, more white, some more natural light. If you looked right out the windows, you could see the Wellsville Mountains right over there, and that just really brightened up the classroom, not just having the dim lights and the rows of desks. It was more of an open, colorful place, and I think that helped us in our learning.
My favorite thing in this prototype is probably we weren't just stationary the whole time, and we got to explore in our own way. It wasn't a set of directions, and we got to keep moving around. Go right on the window. Go right on the window. Go right on the wall. Be on the ground working. It was just very interactive with other people too, which I really liked.
My favorite part of the new learning space is that there's no designated front of the classroom. I don't know. I just don't like sitting in a chair looking at the teacher and him lecturing, but they can go around and they can help you, and you can like move on chairs that move around or on stools or on bouncy yoga balls or something. But it's really fun because you can just, there's no designated front and you can just go wherever.
What makes this different than a normal classroom or environment that I'm used to, you don't have all these desks, you don't have everything crammed into one little, it's kind of open. You have freedom to roam. And I think others feel more confident to participate and to put forth an effort than they do in this crammed little I'm in a little desk. There's not much I can do. So that's what I feel like is the biggest difference between a normal classroom and this.
We need to focus on that, the things that the kids find inviting. The use of color, the use of light, the use of visibility, the use of writable spaces. I always thought that it was going to be the technology, because we've got some great technology in here as well. And I really thought it would be the technology that the kids would go all goo-goo over. But what they loved was they loved the colors. They loved the fact that they could see outside. They loved the fact that they could feel like they are a part of it. And the ability of the facilitator, and hopefully our teachers, when we get to that point of bringing them into these spaces, can find that it really helps to facilitate individual work, partner work, group work, or whole class work. The space is flexible enough that you can accommodate for all of those within one location. And to me, that's the real beauty of this prototyping space, is that it's no longer confined to a box that we have to work out of.
We think a lot about the tools, the resources, the materials that we want our prototype participants to have access to. And what we find is, regardless of what we bring, they will do remarkable things with it. So if we have a few things and it's cardboard and it's markers and a little bit of Play-Doh and a sense of adventure, incredible things can happen. If we have great projection systems and we have the ability to build and mock up and 3D print, again, incredible things can happen. So we think a lot about that. And we've had the privilege of getting to think about that in spaces that are really conducive, that really celebrate collaboration, celebrate problem solving, celebrate thinking out loud together, celebrate I think this is what we need, wait a minute, no, and it's this idea of being agile, this idea of being able to pivot, this idea of being able to quickly focus, but immediately have access to your team, to the ideas, to the community. So in an ideal world, what we look for, one, we want things to move at the speed of people's ideas and imagination. And literally, we want the room to constantly evolve, emerge, shift, adapt to the needs of the individuals and the teams. And so in a perfect world, everything is malleable. Everything is agile. Everything is flexible. We also believe that people need to be comfortable when they're pushed hard and they work hard. They also need to refuel. They need to be comfortable. They need to be able to tap, think, stretch. So when we think about spaces, when we think about furniture, we need people to be able to breathe in and breathe out, to be in a space and be highly focused, and then turn and daydream because they can see at multiple distances. We need them to be able to really quickly move into a space where the acoustics are gentle to the ear, but at the same time they can project if there's an audience. We need spaces that can be very intentional and formal, and then immediately becomes like a black box theater. And immediately everything disappears and the space is infinite. Second, or the next thing that comes to mind is the idea that I ought to be able to write, sketch, doodle, say, wait, what did you say, and get that idea down everywhere I look, everywhere I turn. And whether it's an iPad, it's a table where I can write on, it's the walls around us, it's a Post-it note that being stuck to the walls, it's realizing the glass, the window, and the door can be written on is just as powerful. And I think that idea that everything around us is ready for us to think, create out loud, to be able to work together and allow others to be able to see our not only solutions, but the process by which we got there. And I think the last thing is we need an area or we need a series of areas, or we need an atmosphere that sparks imagination and doesn't overly formalize the way we're supposed to respond to a problem or an invitation. And if the space can invite and spark and make you wonder, even better.
I really love this prototype experience, and I'm in love with it because of what I see happening in the classroom. And I can't call this a classroom anymore. a learning space. That's truly what it's become. People are excited to be in this space. They're looking forward to the opportunity to explore what they can do in this space. And that's really what we're trying to create for the school. Now, I've thought for years about school design and what we can bring into a space for school design. And what I'm seeing here is just the beginnings of what I think we can do with the school. And if we will think more in terms of what the students need for their experience, for their learning, and less about what traditionally goes into a classroom, 4 walls and 40 seats is not the answer for the future. We need spaces where people can come and create and explore and experience and learn in a way that is exciting to them and connects them to other people, other things.
As I look at some of these high school students and think about their potential, it blows my mind thinking about the possibilities and how sharp they are, and when they're really engaged and thinking about things, how incredibly beyond anything that anybody in the world has ever conceived of, our high school students today are thinking about. So my hope is that the Wonder Lab will help to set the groundwork, that the future of Logan High and the future of the high school experience for Logan High School students will help to empower them to do the extraordinary things that they are capable of doing.
What I hope the students come to realize is that what matters more than anything is standing for something that you value. And what a prototype says is, I'm curious about something, I think this kind of explains my ideas, and if we could commit and develop this, we might build something that matters. At the heart of that, though, is you got to stand for something that you care deeply about. And if we can do that based upon, I heard your story, I empathize with why, and I think this will help you or help us, extraordinary things can happen.